What if a single drink could unlock everything you've forgotten? Your past, your purpose, your true identity. One moment, you're a nobody in a quiet bar. The next, you're being hunted for memories you didn't know you had. Visions, voices, secrets buried in your blood. This isn't just a story, it's a revelation waiting to explode. Stay with us, because the drink was only the beginning. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. Oren Kale stepped through the creaking doorway of the Violet Key Lounge just as the twin moons began to rise behind the smog-filled skyline. Outside, the city buzzed with life. Voices shouted in languages he didn't know. Neon signs flickered, like lightning bugs caught in a glass jar, and the air was thick with a mix of burning oil, sweet spices, and something that smelled almost metallic. This was the outer stretch of the trade colonies, a place where laws didn't stretch and secrets came cheap if you knew where to look. Oren didn't come here for trouble. He came for silence, for the kind of drink that took the edge off the memories that still crawled through his mind at night. He wore a brown coat with too many patches and boots that had walked more planets than he could name. No one noticed him when he walked in, and that was exactly how he liked it. The lounge was dim, lit mostly by strips of pale blue light that curved around the ceiling like veins. A few people sat at the bar, but none of them looked up. Two aliens played a quiet game of cards in the corner while a small floating bot hummed softly nearby. Oren walked past them all and slid into a corner seat at the end of the bar, where the light didn't quite reach and the noise was a little more distant. The bartender appeared without a sound. She was tall, with skin that shimmered like wet stone and hair that moved as if it floated in water. Her eyes were silver, not shiny like metal, but deep like the inside of a pearl. Tattoos wrapped around her arms, glowing faintly, shifting like they had lives of their own. She looked at Oren with a calm expression. "Custom drink?" she asked, her voice soft but clear like a whisper wrapped in glass. Oren nodded. "Something bitter. Something strong. No fire." She didn't speak again. Instead, she reached beneath the counter and began to mix. Her hands were fast and graceful, pouring liquids from thin glass tubes. Green, amber, and something that looked like mist swirled into the cup. As she worked, her tattoos shifted more, quickly, pulsing with light. Then her fingers stopped. Just for a moment she looked at Oren. Not just at him, but into him, like she was searching for something hidden behind his eyes. And without saying a word, she pulled a tiny black vial from a space beneath the counter and let a single drop fall into the drink. It didn't change color, didn't smoke, but Oren felt something in his stomach twist. She slid the glass toward him. "Here," she said, "the kind of drink that finds you." Oren raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. She turned away and began cleaning a glass that didn't need cleaning. He looked at the drink. It shimmered faintly. Maybe it was the light. Maybe not. He took a sip. It was bitter and strong, just like he asked. But then the room shifted. Oren blinked. Once. Twice. The lights above the bar seemed to move in slow motion. The voices in the background slowed too, dragging out like a tape playing too slow. His heart thudded hard against his chest, and then came the visions. They weren't dreams, not really. They felt too sharp, too real. He saw himself standing on a platform of metal surrounded by stars. Machines knelt before him. Symbols spun in the air, glowing gold, shifting like puzzles. He heard voices speaking in echoes. Words he didn't understand, yet somehow he knew what they meant. They spoke of awakening, of returning, of a task not yet completed. Then he was back. Just like that. His glass was empty. The bar was quiet again. The bartender stood across from him, watching with a gentler look now. "You're awake," she said. Oren stared at her. What the hell was in that drink? "Not poison," she said. "Not a drug. A trigger." "A trigger for what?" She leaned in slightly. "Your memory, your purpose, your real story." Oren laughed, but it came out nervous and dry. "Lady, I'm just a cargo tech. I fix broken wires. I'm nobody. No, she said softly. You were never meant to be ordinary. Oren felt a strange weight settle into his chest. He tried to make sense of it, but the edges of the vision still clung to him. Machines bowing, stars swirling, his hands lighting up with symbols he'd never seen before. What did you put in that drink? She tilted her head. A key. A key to what? Your mind. The part sealed off, the things you've forgotten, or were made to forget. Suddenly, the door to the lounge creaked open. 3 figures entered, tall, wrapped in dark cloaks. They didn't speak, didn't hesitate. They just walked straight toward the bar. Oren's instincts snapped awake. He didn't know who they were, but he knew what danger looked like, and these people were wrapped in it. The bartender didn't move. They're here for you, she said, her voice lower now. You need to leave. Why? He asked. What's happening to me? She reached beneath the counter and pulled out a small glowing chip. It pulsed gently in her hand like it had a heartbeat. Take this, she said. Go to the scrapyard in the hollow sector. Someone will be waiting. They'll help you unlock the rest. Oren took the chip. It was warm. What's your name? He asked. She smiled faintly. Naven. Then she turned and walked away, fading into the shadows like she'd never been there at all. Oren stood slowly. Behind him, the 3 figures watched. He stepped out into the night, the chip in his pocket glowing softly. He didn't know who he really was yet, but something had changed, and it all started with a single drink. Oren Kale didn't run at first. He just walked, careful and steady, trying not to draw attention as he left the Violet Quay lounge. The city felt different now, sharper, louder. Every light blinked in a rhythm his body seemed to recognize. The cube Naven gave him pulsed gently in his pocket, almost like it had a heartbeat. Behind him, he could hear the soft echo of footsteps. Not hurried, not loud, but too consistent to be random. The 3 cloaked figures were following. He turned a corner and moved into a narrow alley lined with flickering signs and steaming vents. The smell of metal and damp wiring filled the air. A group of street merchants shouted nearby, but their voices sounded distant, like they were coming from underwater. Oren's head still buzzed from the vision. Machines bowing. Strange languages, stars swirling. He shook his head to clear it, but the images refused to leave. He ducked into a shadowed side path, squeezed through a half-open maintenance hatch, and climbed down into a lower level. It was quieter there. The sounds of the upper city faded, replaced by the soft hum of old machinery and the occasional hiss of steam. He crouched behind a broken vending unit, trying to catch his breath. He had no idea who those cloaked people were or why they were after him, but deep inside he knew one thing. They weren't going to stop until they found him. He pulled out the cube. It sat calmly in his hand, glowing a soft blue. Then it flickered. A small crack of light appeared on its surface and stretched into a thin line that floated upward. Oren blinked. The light bent in the air and formed a shape. A map. He couldn't read the names, but the images were clear. One place glowed brighter than the rest, marked with a symbol that looked like an open eye. Above it, faint letters shimmered into view. Origin seat. Before he could study it more, a low sound echoed. Through the tunnel, footsteps. Close. They were here. Oren stuffed the cube back into his pocket and ran. His boots pounded against the metal floor, sending echoes bouncing through the corridors. He didn't look back. Not yet. He turned right, then left, following instincts he didn't fully trust. Everything around him looked the same. Grimy walls, rusted pipes, old lights, but somehow he knew where he was going. Like the map had burned itself into his memory. He slipped through another service hatch and found himself in a narrow, dimly lit train tunnel. An old maintenance rail stretched into darkness ahead. He crouched behind a control box and listened. Nothing. Only silence and the soft electric buzz of the cube in his pocket. His heart thumped in his chest. He pressed his back to the wall, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. Then the visions came again. They hit hard this time. Not slow or dreamlike, but sharp, like lightning cutting through his thoughts. He saw towers made of silver and bone, floating cities and great machines whispering in harmony. He stood on a bridge made of light, speaking to beings he couldn't see, and he wasn't just watching, he was part of it, like these memories belonged to him, like they had always been his. He opened his eyes, breathing hard. The cube flickered once more. A soft voice came from it, not a recording, not synthetic. It sounded human, familiar but strange at the same time. "Anchorborn," it said. "You have begun the return." Oren stared at it. "What are you?" The voice didn't answer. Instead it repeated, "Origin seat. Find the key. Remember the path." His hand shook slightly as he put the cube away. He didn't know what was happening, but the feeling in his chest told him it was real, the kind of real that couldn't be undone. Suddenly, a shadow moved at the end of the tunnel. Oren ducked. One of the cloaked figures stepped into view, silent and slow. It turned its head slightly as if listening. Its face was covered by a smooth silver plate. No eyes, no mouth, just reflection. It didn't speak. It only took a step forward. Oren bolted. He ran along the tracks, dodging cables and jumping over broken panels. The tunnel twisted, then opened into a wide chamber filled with old transport pods. He climbed into one and pulled the door shut. It was dusty and dead, but he could breathe in it. He curled into the corner, hands still clutching the cube. His body was shaking, not just from fear, but from something else, something rising inside him. Not panic, not anger, power. His thoughts jumped back to the lounge, to Naven, to the way she'd looked at him, not with fear, not even with curiosity, with recognition. She had known who he was before he did. Oren didn't sleep. He waited until the sounds faded, until the tunnel went silent again. Then he opened the pod door and stepped out. He wasn't sure where the next part of the map would lead, but he knew he had to follow it. He didn't understand the visions or the strange language or why he felt like another mind had opened up inside him. But it was all connected, and if he stayed still too long, they would catch him. He looked down the tunnel, then up at the old exit ladder leading back to the surface. Above, the metal ceiling pulsed with faint light, as if it too was waiting for him to make his next move. And, with one last breath, Oren climbed. Oren Kale emerged from the ladder into a forgotten part of the city. The buildings here were broken shells, leaning into each other like old friends too tired to stand on their own. Cracked glass, faded signs, and rusted beams made the place look abandoned. But Oren felt eyes on him. Not human eyes. Something older, something quiet. The map in his mind pulled him forward. He didn't need to check the cube anymore. It had already done its job. The path was inside him now, like a memory he'd just remembered. The streets were empty. Even the air felt still. He followed the invisible trail through tight alleys and broken doorways until he reached a gate covered in hanging wires and painted with strange symbols. It looked like nothing, just another ruin. But when Oren stepped closer, the gate buzzed softly and slid open without a sound. Beyond it was a long tunnel glowing with pale green light. He didn't hesitate. He stepped in. The end of the tunnel was a wide chamber, the walls lined with old machines and half-working screens. A man stood in the center, his back turned. Half of his face was covered in a smooth layer of clear glass, behind which lights flickered like a storm. The man turned slowly, and his one natural eye studied Oren with a strange calm. "You took the drink," the man said. Oren nodded. "Who are you?" "Torin," the man replied. "But that doesn't matter. What matters is what you are." Oren didn't answer. Torin stepped closer. "You felt the change," he said. "Your mind opened. The cube showed you pieces, memories that don't belong in this time, languages you never learned, places you've never seen but somehow recognize." "I don't understand any of it," Oren said. "I fix things. That's all I've ever done." "You were made to fix things," Torin said with a smile. "But not machines, not anymore. You were built to fix the broken pieces of the past." Oren shook his head. "Built? By who?" Torin walked to one of the machines and touched a control. The wall behind him lit up. showing a giant spinning structure in space, ancient and glowing with power. Long before this city existed, before humans spread to the stars, there was a design, a system created to protect knowledge, to restart the world if it ever fell too far. But the creators vanished. They left behind a few keys. People like you. Oren stared at the image. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. You're what they called an anchor, Torin continued. A living vault. You hold pieces of a blueprint in your mind. The drink didn't give you something new, it unlocked what was already there. Oren stepped back. I didn't ask for any of this. No one ever does, Torin said softly. But the world is changing. The Watchers are awake now. They were created to guard the old secrets. Now they're afraid of what happens if someone like you remembers everything. Why? Oren asked. Because memory is power, Torin replied. And you have more of it than you know. Oren sat down on a rusted bench, running a hand through his hair. The weight of it all pressed on him. The visions, the voices, the cube. It was too much. What happens if I follow this? If I find the origin seat? You'll see the full map, Torin said. Not just places, but people, choices, events that were hidden from history. You'll see what was meant to be. Oren looked at him. And if I don't? Then nothing changes, Torin said. You go back to fixing wires and hiding from things that were built to hunt you. Oren stood. The air around him felt heavier. Something inside him had shifted again. Not just knowledge, but awareness. The machines in the room seemed to hum louder. The lights flickered in sync with his breathing. How do I find it? He asked. Torin handed him a small device shaped like a ring. Wear this. It'll guide you. But be careful. The more you remember, the more unstable the world around you may become. Your presence alone wakes up pieces of the old system. Oren took the ring and slipped it onto his finger. It adjusted instantly, the metal molding to his skin. A soft pulse ran through his arm. Images flashed in his mind, brief but powerful. A hallway filled with glass pillars, a voice saying his name. A door opening with no handle. The Watchers won't stop now, Torin warned. But you're not alone anymore. Others like you are waking up. When you find the seat, they'll come. Oren turned toward the tunnel. What about you? I've done my part, Torin said, already walking away. Now you do yours. Oren left the chamber and stepped back into the city. The ring hummed quietly. It pulled him east, toward a part of the city he had never entered. Everything looked different now. Lights blinked with purpose. Patterns appeared in the cracks of the pavement. He could hear voices, not outside, but within him, like echoes left behind by people he'd never met. As he walked, he began to realize the truth. He wasn't just remembering the past. He was becoming part of it. Oren Kale followed the quiet pull of the ring for hours. It led him beyond the edge of the city, past empty fields where old machines lay broken and forgotten. The sky above had changed. Less color, more shadow. Even the wind felt different, like it carried voices too faint to understand. He didn't see anyone else, but he felt watched. Not with eyes, but with something deeper. The kind of watching that happens in your bones. The path ended at a canyon filled with mist. A narrow bridge stretched across it, leading to a black stone platform that floated in midair. On it stood a single chair, shaped like it had been carved from silence itself. Smooth, round, untouched by time. Oren stepped onto the bridge. The mist didn't move, but the air seemed to part for him. Each step echoed like he was walking through memory. As he reached the platform, a figure emerged from the mist. It was tall, neither man nor machine. Its body was made of dark glass, with soft lights pulsing underneath the surface. Its face was blank. No features, just the faint outline of a mouth that hadn't spoken in centuries. You've come far, the figure said, its voice like wind passing through stone. Oren nodded slowly. Are you the one they said would help me? I am Siren, the figure replied. I am the last guardian of the Seat of Silence. Oren looked at the chair. It didn't look like anything special, but every part of him knew it was. What is it? He asked. It's not a machine, Siren said. It's a memory, the oldest memory. Sit and you will see the full pattern, not the future, not the past, but the truth beneath both. Oren hesitated. They said it might destroy who I am. Siren tilted its head. It will, but only the version of you that was shaped by fear. Oren didn't speak for a long time. He thought of the drink, the visions, the map, the voices. He thought of Naven, of Torin, of the Watchers who never spoke, ever, and most of all, he thought of the part of himself that had always felt out of place, like he was living someone else's story. He stepped forward and sat in the seat. The moment he did, the world went quiet. Not just silent, empty. No wind. No heartbeat. No thoughts. Just space. Then, like a drop of ink in water, everything changed. He was floating, not in air, but in time. He saw worlds rise and fall. He saw machines building cities, people shaping stars, languages forming from light. He saw himself, or versions of himself, walking through all of it. In some, he was a leader. In others, a teacher. Sometimes a child. Sometimes something not even human. The memories weren't shown to him. They returned to him. And at the center of it all was the truth. The anchors like him were never meant to control the universe. They were meant to remind it, to hold the code of what once worked and carry it forward into what might work again. The drink had unlocked the beginning. The cube had guided him. The ring had protected him. And the seat had returned what was always his. He opened his eyes. Siren stood before him, silent. I remember now, Oren said, but I don't think the world is ready for this. It never is, Siren replied. But that's never stopped it from changing. Oren stood. The seat was no longer glowing. The mist began to fade. Somewhere far away the ground trembled. He knew what it meant. Others were waking up. The Watchers would come again, but not to chase. This time, they would listen. What happens now? Oren asked. You decide, Siren said. The system will follow your choice. Oren reached into his coat and pulled out the ring. It no longer hummed. It had done its work. He placed it on the seat. Then let the old story end, he said. Let a new one begin, not from memory, but from hope. Siren gave a slow nod. Then your silence has spoken. Oren turned and walked back across the bridge. The mist cleared ahead of him, revealing a sky with stars brighter than before. In the distance, he could see lights moving. Ships, maybe. People. Others like him, drawn by the same signal. He didn't know what he would tell them. Not yet. But he would speak. And they would listen. Because Oren Kale was no longer a man looking for answers. He was now the beginning of a new question.